Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave Sports and Entertainment original presented by Prize Picks. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We got a lot going on here. We're going to talk about the WNBA Finals Game 5 in just a few minutes. We had an action-packed week of NFL action. Thank goodness, man, because we at that point in the season where, all right, you need stakes. Like, to watch a sporting event and a sporting event to really mean something to you or to really give it to you, chances are, in some form or fashion, you're going to need stakes. Otherwise, it's just something that plays in front of you. It's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later with the WNBA. But with the NFL, what it has going for it, because the sample size of games is so small, is it always has stakes. Especially early in the season, because everybody can trick themselves into believing they might be good or whatever. The stakes get up there quick. And then, like a team 0-2, next game got stakes immediately. Your season might be over if you don't win this one, you know? But you start getting to the middle of the year and the stakes kind of start to thin out for everybody, right? Like the teams that are going to be good, how important these games are, not really. The teams that are probably going to be teams that don't make the playoffs, yeah, these games are mattering in terms of whether or not they go to the playoffs. However, how much they actually matter, that part kind of declines, and therefore the stakes aren't really there. But we got some games with some stakes this week. Like, it was helpful to have that. First of all, shout out to you guys, the Green Bay Packers, because, Sean, I believe we have talked about this. I don't think we expected the NFC North dogfight. It appears to be a 4-way dogfight. I ain't never heard of a quadruple threat match.
Yeah, there's always like 1 or 2 teams that stick out in each division, not all 4.
All four. Especially when some of them is Lions, Vikings, and Bears.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, traditionally, these teams have been at the bottom of every NFC standings.
Right. Yeah, well, like the Vikings, to be fair to them, what you've always known historically about the Vikings is not that the Vikings are going to be bad, but they're not going to be there at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like they come out there, you know, they got that royal purple on, you know what I'm saying? Like, I always liked the Vikings. I don't know why. As a kid, I was really, I knew that wasn't a horn on the helmet, but I thought that was a great idea.
It's just a cool logo. I think as a kid, you're
Yeah.
like, well, that looks cool versus like, you know, the Jets. Like, I can't do anything with the Jets logo.
Right, like the same thing with the Eagles when they came up with the wings. And I always want to know if somebody got a raise for that. Like with the horns, It's a thing. By the way, when I was in Iceland, my guy Aaron, who was giving me a tour, not a fan of the Vikings at all, really hates the idea that the Vikings have been romanticized in culture. Like, he talk about the Vikings like the way some people talk about, like, mafia movies. Like, oh, you make it seem like Italians are gangsters, and that's good, right? He talk about it like they're gangster rappers. He just felt that, I mean, I could go on and on about his quibbles with the Vikings, however. But one thing he said is apparently they didn't wear hats with horns. That somewhere along the way, somebody came up with the idea, but he was telling me that that wasn't the case. And whoever came up with that, good for you. You deserve a raise. I think that's a big part of why the Vikings exist in like a coolness factor.
Yeah, it just looks way cooler than not having the hats. So now I'm going to just believe
Yes.
that it was always a thing, you know?
Yes, that is what we're going with, right? And we get the irony of Kirk Cousins being a Viking. It doesn't seem like he don't seem like a Viking type necessarily. Neither does Sam Darnold. But anyway, my Lions went out there and put the paws on them boys. I understand in the end that the game was fundamentally close, but if you watched it, it didn't seem to be a whole lot of dispute about who the better team was. The Honolulu Blue was tapping that ass. They, you know, what's his name? Montgomery had that fumble that got run back and thereby making the score look a little closer than it was. Jared Goff, I mean, after a guy looked like somebody different than who you thought he was for so long, at what point do you have to let him, like, give him credit for being who he looks like he is? And I'm going to be honest with you, Jared Goff, not till you win a Super Bowl, but for right now, you're doing a really good impression of one hell of a quarterback. Good for you, big dog. But, dog, they out here running. That offense, it's a thing, guys. And the Vikings up to now this season had looked excellent. Like, this was not one of those where you felt like they were just stringing it together. No. The Lions going in there and playing that game, this was a game with stakes because somebody, not only somebody have to win that division, if you want to have any hope of getting that bye week in the playoffs, that's extra tough in the division. That's going to be the four-way dogfight. Like, you got to really start getting these wins now so you can, make this thing happen. That is what my Vikings look like they was out here doing. Shout out to them. I'm a kind of roundabout around the league here. Sean, did you see that play where Saquon Barkley ducked his shoulder and took out all the frustration he had with management on some poor unsuspecting defensive back?
Yeah, that was just perfect because he's not the type to say and talk about his frustration. He's gonna talk. He'd do it on the field, and he did it in the best way possible, I think.
Yeah, I don't really be beefing with my old bosses. I think I may have told you a story when I realized that beefing with the old boss wasn't a great idea. So I had worked at this radio station. They ain't really do right by me, I'm gonna be honest. And they had bought, the radio station that I worked for did right by me, but they was bought by another company that I do not think did right by me. And I was a little salty about the fact that they did not do right by me. And so when I started doing Around the Horn, they gave me a choice of a few different studios, perhaps that I could go sit in to do the show. And I specifically picked the one that was in the same building as this company that did not do right by me. So they could see me walking in, doing bigger and better things. You know what I'm saying? My dumb ass didn't stop and consider the fact that they was in the same building, probably meaning that they was owned by the same people. So here I was getting back at them, putting paper in their pocket. Lots of paper in their pocket, by the way. An exorbitant amount of paper in their pocket. And I called myself getting them back. That's when I realized you can't really so much worry about that. But Saquon Barkley's younger than I was. He hadn't quite, gotten to that point of realizing that thing. And what makes it, I think, interesting is it's one thing to have that feeling that you got beef with your boss and you want to take it out on him if you get the opportunity. It's another thing when you got no access to the boss whatsoever, and all that means is you gonna run over some dude you ain't never even heard of. Like you want to talk about somebody that ain't got nothing to do with it. I assure you, he was running over some cat that wished like hell that he was still on the team. The Giants is sorry, but hey, price had to be paid, right? Price had to be paid. I watched the Panthers and the Commanders play a little bit. Jaden Daniels was out there killing it till he got a rib injury. They brought Marcus Mariota in the game. And, I've talked to you guys about, black ups in the NFL and that you need to have a black up. If you're going to have a black starting quarterback, you should have a black backup quarterback to stop them white folks from acting crazy, right? It's probably the best way to do it. Where do our Polynesian brothers fall on this continuum? Like, I feel like it depends. Marcus Mariota, he could keep the people at bay, but it wouldn't work the same way. We'd call it Tua, right? Because maybe they seen a little bit too much of him. I feel like he get a little different treatment, which is to say maybe it's not so much that you need a black up to your black quarterback as you just need a quarterback with a name that's got some black up in it, which is to say, being named Marcus, maybe that's enough. You know what I'm saying? Maybe like you could be whatever you want, but if they know they got to bring Marcus in the game, you good. You'll get your chance.
Marcus certainly better than Mark, from a backup standpoint.
Yeah. Mark with a C? No, he coming for your job, and the people want him to take your job. If he got a Q in it, it might be a little different. For example, Marcus Tuiasosopo. Remember him?
Yeah.
He was through for 300 and ran for 200 in a game. If that ain't a black up, I don't know what is. He only lasted in the league for like a couple years. Al Davis gave him a chance. I say, what's blacker than that? You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. So Jaden Daniels, no, you good. They're not gonna take your job and give it to Marcus. Don't worry about that. Marcus Mariota, Marcus Garvey, it don't matter. You solid in your position. Speaking of solid in his position, Sean, did you see the Chiefs again win a game without actually being especially good on offense?
I don't know how they do it. I know we had the 49ers potentially in the row zone a couple weeks ago, and it seems like they're just continuing to play bad. But I just don't know how the Chiefs do it every week. I really don't. I don't know how they've won 6 straight games.
They do it because their defense is incredible, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm watching that game at Nick's house. So I learned all kinds of things about the Chiefs at Nick's house. Sean, I just sent you something that we might want to pull up in a second. Let me know if we're able to do that. But I'm watching that Knicks out, so I learned all about the defense. They put some dude out there on the field, and Nick was like, this must be his first game he's ever played for the Chiefs because I've never heard of him. I've never seen him. I don't know his number. And I took that to be the gospel truth because that man follows that so closely. And so Mahomes has basically had a full season of statistical mediocrity. Right? I don't think there's any way around that. I think we've had a full season of statistical mediocrity. And they keep winning games, and even when he is mediocre, he's still getting it done. But what he did in this game, he got it done running. He had 2 runs that jumped out. He had the one where he'd be out there doing that pump fake and being right by the sideline and then hit him with just a little bit of L1 where you just tap L1. I know they don't use L1 on the game no more, but as I've been telling y'all for the last 20 years, I've been out here getting this paper while you was out here playing these fucking video games. And if you think I'm talking bad about you, you should hear your wife. Anyway, he hit that little bit of R1. It wasn't R1. He went the other way. Hit him with that little bit of R1. Did some pump fake that ain't even legitimately a pump fake. By the way, shout out to all the people who say accurately that he shouldn't be allowed to do that because them boys, they can't crush you on the sideline because they'll they'll throw the flag on you or whatever. But he used that and got all the way down there, making it happen. Then he had another one where he ran it in at the goal line, and this dude had a chance to deliver the hammer, and I think his plan was to deliver the hammer, and he lowered his shoulder, and Patrick Mahomes hit him with the off me, with the shoulder off me. Sean, you saw the play I'm talking about, right? That guy on the left. Go ahead, go ahead and put that back up there since they already got it right there. That guy on the left, that's who Patrick Mahomes, who is the guy on the right, who apparently has never seen the weight room. Like, you go to Kansas City and be like, hey, Pat, where the weight room at? He'll be like, I don't know, ask him. That Mahomes dropped his shoulder and dropped that dude who looked like he must be in the Fruit of Islam with that name, laid his ass out right there in front of everybody, dog. It's like, oh, that's how they doing it? That's how they doing it. I have no idea how good they are. It does not seem sustainable that you can keep winning like this. We've seen this happen in past. I don't want to be that guy. It's a guy that I've made fun of for a very long time, and it's the guy that's always talking about the past, even though the president is directly in front of him, right? I don't want to be the guy that's like, all that matters is if you're winning right now. I don't want to be that guy. However, it sure looks like that's what's going on here, guys, because they have the best quarterback that I've ever seen. Except, of course, the best quarterback that I've ever seen does not look like the best quarterback that I've ever seen right now. Thereby, I have no idea what to make of this because right now the Chiefs look like one of them teams that got a bunch of defense and some offense that you 100% can't trust. And everything we know about football in this day and age, you can't let that happen, right? That's why, well, I ain't really, that's why. This is a segue of sorts. The Jets stink, dog. There ain't no way around it. And you want me to tell you, I'm going to tell you how you know the Jets stink. And this is a very important distinction, okay? We laughed that year when Aaron Rodgers did the relax thing about the Packers. And by the end of the season, he had been vindicated in taking that approach. They went on a run. They got a lot better. They didn't win no Super Bowl or whatever, but he was right. Whatever their early rut-row zone situation was, he told everybody to chill out, and they all chilled out, and then it was going to be okay. And it worked out that way. Sean, that's not the approach he's taking now. He's taking the approach of, not only do we stink, I think I stink too.
Yeah, he finally held some sort of accountability this morning, but, I mean, that's how you know Rodgers is down bad, if he's going to be blaming himself.
Yo, and I can't only imagine how Show Friends feels right now.
There's a clip of Devontae Adams on the sidelines looking like he regretted every decision he made leading up to that point.
I don't know. When's the last time Show Friends made a good decision?
Not
every move. I mean, honestly, I don't think having a Taco Bell in your house is a great decision. I don't know how you stay in playing shape like that. Nah, Show Friends got to be hating that. It looked like the Russell Wilson decision was okay, though I saw a lot of that game where Russell Wilson looked like the Russell Wilson that hadn't been good enough. But see, here's what he is, and Aaron Rodgers is in this same category. Like, you look at that touchdown pass to Russell Wilson through the George Pickens up the right sideline, where he throws it right up there. Defensive back can't even get his head around. It's just perfect placement right there for Pickens to snatch it. He can still do that every now and then. He can still do that here and there. But then I look at these other throws where it looks like his legs don't work anymore. Like, where he doesn't get his lower body into it at all. Like, he looks to be in large part physically cooked, but he can still dial it up every now and then. But at least in the short run, it vindicated the decision that Tomlin made to make that move. But I remember when I got out here and talked about how Aaron Rodgers was immobile and couldn't get it done. And then on a Thursday night, they beat the Patriots, and I had all these people in my mentions talking about how premature I had been on that. And then what do you know? You fast forward, and none of them motherfuckers are anywhere to be found, are they? Yeah, I said it. Anyway, it's entirely possible that's what it could be with Russell Wilson. Now, for the last game of this week, let us talk about the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns lost to the Bengals. The Cleveland Browns are 1-6. It is largely to blame on Deshaun Watson. His old nasty ass had been the worst quarterback in the NFL. And then this weekend, Deshaun Watson appeared to tear his Achilles. And I have to say, I saw a replay of it. Now, if you guys know me, you know I don't do the injury replays. I don't really see the point. Like, I don't need to diagnose it in real time, any of that stuff. That's not what I do, okay? I saw that one, and that is the only time that I've seen somebody tear an Achilles and I felt like I saw it. Like, you saw the way his foot came down, and it was like, ooh, there's no question what happened here. And I hate being TV doctor. Hate it.
No, it was like you were saying, it's the first one where I really saw that calf ripple that they talk about with the Achilles. Like, I saw it clear as day.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's done, right? So he's on the ground, and the people booed when he was down on the ground. And it's a tricky thing to me, right? And the reason I say that it's tricky, this is actually very interesting. Remember, I talked about I don't know who invented booing, but nothing maps to the emotion one-to-one quite like booing, right? Like the sound of the boo and what the booer feels is a direct relationship, like straight to the point with the boo. But a lot of people took umbrage with the booing that took place, but the opposite of the boo is the cheer. And I argue that cheering the guy when he got hurt is far worse. In fact, I'm making the argument that booing when he's hurt doesn't make any sense. Any sense whatsoever. You should boo when a good player gets hurt. You're sad about that fact. I mean, honestly, you need to be glad that they wasn't out there popping champagne like a championship game. Happy as they were that he wasn't going to be in the game. So anyway, Watson's on the ground. There are larger discussions to be had. I'll wait a little bit for them about the fact that he may have played his last game in the NFL. Like, this is, I don't know what to do with this, what comes of it or whatever, but there's a chance that he never touches the field ever again, at least not with the Cleveland Browns, despite what the salary cap situation is and anything else. But in the end, he was a football player on the ground being booed due to injury. Now, well, I'll just say this. I observed a lot of the people on the internet who seemed somewhat dismissive of the fact that he was booed for obvious reasons, right? Notably being that Deshaun Watson nasty and all the things that come to people's feelings about his nasty. No one is going to be sympathetic toward him that is probably not watching the game. That's not going to happen. It was a much different case for the players that were in the game, and they had to go off and make this just a little bit weird. Sean, can we play Myles Garrett?
Like I said, no one deserves that. And I hate using the word deserves. I'm usually, pretty consistent saying earned. He hadn't earned it, and he doesn't deserve it. Man does pretty much everything right. He's been a model citizen through college and most of the pros. He plays the game as hard as anyone I've seen. Puts everything on the line, willing to throw his body out there, and he plays the game at 100 miles per hour, and there's a risk of being injured, and he took that risk. But we have to be there for him as a team, as an organization. We can't look down on the guy because of any mistakes on the field or anything off the field. No, we don't have anything. We don't have any more high ground to look down on the guy.
Hey, man, I would like to think that you do have a little more high ground to look down on him. I would like to think that. Please don't I like the humility. I feel where you're coming from, but I would like to think that at least one of y'all does have the moral high ground to look down on Deshaun Watson just a touch. I would like to consider that. But I think cats get up there at the microphones and he's still on their team. Right? No matter what you think about him and how you think his peers should deal with him, or whether you believe that people like Deshaun Watson, that there should be some policing of their behavior by their peers. I understand your argument there. I also understand why one would think that that's a bit of an unrealistic expectation. But I understand where people come from on that. But the dude is still on the team. And so as long as they are a team, nobody's going to get up to the microphone and in that moment throw that dude under the bus in the ways that I think a lot of people would like to happen. And certainly not after he suffered an injury that I'm sure terrifies all of them. They all know what it means when somebody tears an Achilles. So for the grace of God, there go I, whether I'm nasty or not. I understand if you're somebody like Myles Garrett and that's how you feel. But you ain't really, you ain't got to say that other stuff, right? You know that as he was saying it, he was like, I don't know, man. I'm going to say this right now, man, to my friends. If I ever get caught being nasty times 25, man, don't y'all feel like y'all got to come up here and ride for me, man. Not like that. I'd appreciate it if y'all could, give me some grace and maybe still kick it with me, but you ain't got to go out there and make a fool of yourself on my behalf. That's not friendship. That's foolishness. And so he gets up there and he starts rattling it off. And I think it just feels like that's the kind of thing you're supposed to do in that place. But when he was like, he has been, a role model, did he say, for most of the time in the pros?
Yeah, he said a model citizen for most of the pros.
Yeah, honestly, bro, at this point, it ain't even most if you want to do the math about the pros part. At the very least, it's getting to be 50-50 on the timeline. It is just like, But. All right. Let me explain to you how invested they were in trying to keep it going with Deshaun Watson. They went and got 2 black ups. One of them was Dorian Thomas Robinson? That's what the DTR is?
Yep.
Okay, so Dorian Thomas Robinson, he went to UCLA. He came in after Watson got hurt. And the reason he came in after Watson got hurt is that he was the backup, and apparently the Browns were trying so hard to not have the people ask for the black up. It was past just the backup, the black up, that the black up was actually on the emergency quarterback. That's who he was. He was the emergency quarterback. They didn't want y'all even thinking about going to the black up. But the black up came to the game, and the black up made himself available for media after the game. Ladies and gentlemen, Jameis Winston.
But the way I was raised, I will never pull on a man when he's down. But I will be the person to lift him up. And that, all of us have unique experiences. All of us have circumstances, conditions, and facts that we face every single day. And I pride myself in being a man of increase and being a man that wants the best out of everybody. I tell myself every morning what I want for myself, I want for everyone. And I do not want the treatment that Deshaun Watson has received from these passionate fans. I know you love this game. When I first got here, I knew these were some amazing fans. But Deshaun was treated badly. And now he has to overcome another obstacle. So I'm going to support him. I'm going to lift him up. And I'm going to be there for him. Because I see the way he fights. I see the way that he works. And I know who he is as a person and as an NFL quarterback. And that's all I have to say to address him. I'm sending up my prayers. I already prayed for his leg, and I will continue.
I already prayed for his leg. Woo! Who was that? What his teammate said? James called a play like he got a surprise. Like, if you're listening to this on audio, I suggest you go pull up that video, because if you can see the look on that dude's face with the sunglasses, that not even sunglasses, they ain't look like sunglasses. They glasses with no prescription in them, but it's some tint. They like them Chloe glasses. Anyway, if you had seen the intensity in his face. Now, of course, if there's anybody who don't get to judge you for being nasty, it's James. He don't get to do that at all. And he actually does get on a good point about the way Watson is treated. People people making the argument that, again, he deserves it, karma, ... Yeah, that's fair. But them people was not booing, the ones that was in that stadium in all likelihood were not booing him because of allegations of nastiness. They was booing him because he was sorry. And booing him under those circumstances because he's sorry is whack. Now, I'm sure that some of the people in the stadium were booing him because of the other stuff, right? But it is wild. It did go from before he was getting treated way too good in spite of the fact, then when he gets hurt, he got treated a little bit bad for reasons that didn't have nothing to do with the fact. That is, like, legit what happened. Now, they get Jameis. Good luck to all of y'all. All right, WNBA Finals, Game 5. That was a very good game. I missed a lot of the Sunday night football game because I was watching that game. And this gets me back again to the idea and notion of stakes and the importance of stakes in our viewing experience. Obviously, there's going to be stakes in a championship game. And that was, a winner-take-all championship game. You're going to wind up with getting stakes there. But Sean, also, this isn't, I guess, so much tied to stakes, but for me, I realized something. I think I may have told you about this. When I went to Madrid, I went to a Real Madrid soccer match. And I went, and I forget who they were playing against. And it was a cool match, but I admit it was a little bit of a letdown. And I was a little bit of a letdown because I realized I only watch soccer with the highest stakes. And so I'm used to watching the World Cup.
Yep.
Right? Maybe English Premier League playoff game or something like that. And I had never considered there was just regular season soccer.
Yeah, it's like, how often are you watching regular season baseball in that same way outside of
with
the stakes of a World Series?
Yeah, like, wasn't nobody going to be fighting about this? You know what I'm saying? They wasn't going to be out here acting ridiculous. Where the hooligans at? Like, I came here for something with a little bit more ramped up, and they wasn't doing that because the stakes wasn't so much high. And I realized that about women's basketball, that prior to this bit of a WNBA renaissance, if I was watching women's basketball, it was women's basketball with high stakes, deep into the NCAA tournament, for example. That's when I was watching women's basketball. So through the course of this year, I was trying to watch the WNBA because I would like at some point to be capable and qualified to talk about the basketball itself, like on an analytical sort of level here. I'll be honest with you, and this is the part that a lot of people who would like somebody like me to be able to do that need to understand. That's going to take a few years, like, for me to get there. I've been watching all this other stuff for decades. I'm not just going to be able to pop into this after a year or two and really come in with, like, super deep analysis that's going to make you happy about it, because I just don't know enough. Like, I'm humble enough to give you that. I'm not going to be able to do that. But I know a lot about what makes sports go for people. And that was what I was kind of looking at and intrigued by in the course of that game, man. They panned onto that shot at the Barclays Center. And look, something I had not thought about until it was brought up after the game. I remember when the Liberty moved into the Barclays Center, but I felt like I remembered in the past that they had played at Madison Square Garden. I didn't realize that before Joe and Clara Tsai bought the team that they were playing out there in Westchester where the Knicks D-League team plays. Or G-League, sorry. I didn't realize that that was where they were playing. They moved that into the Barclays Center, and it's wild to me. And I guess if you're Dolan, you can't put it in the Barclays Center because, you're Jim Dolan and you own Madison Square Garden. And also, to be fair to him, I imagine you could still get probably a better return on Madison Square Garden than leaving it available for the WNBA. Okay, get all of those things. But at Barclays Center, I've been there for a Liberty game. I've been there for multiple Nets games, and I've been there for Nets playoff games. That place rocks way harder for Liberty games than it does for Nets games. Where the Nets, it feels like they're trying to generate this sort of it's this artificial hip hop vibe that they're going for at Nets games, right? Like they're trying to channel the Jay-Z Biggie stuff, and it just winds up feeling loud. And on top of that, I don't nobody really care about the Nets, if we're being honest. If they do, they in New Jersey, right? Like it just, hey man, don't blame me for what's true. Anyway, that's not the case for the Liberty. They be in there. They care. It rocks. It gets loud. There's serious emotion. And that place never for a professional basketball game had felt or sounded like it did at least. And I'm just saying that from watching it on television. It went. And the thing the WNBA has going at its best and when the games truly have stakes is it feels like sports are supposed to feel. And that game, that environment, the totality of it, to me, that's what sports in those games are supposed to feel like. When this is going, absolutely. It is not about so much about the quality of the athletics. It's not about the efficiency of the performance or anything else. In the end, it's a line that Roger Waters had in Live from Pompeii. He was like, in the end, what did he say? In the finish, either way it goes. I can't remember the exact quote. I think it was like in the finished article, the only thing that matters is whether it moves you or not. That's the only thing that matters. And that's basically the quote. All that matters in the end is how it makes you feel. And the reason why we end this, for by and large, it's not because of how much money we can make on gambling on it. It's not about doing brain teasers and trying to maximize some equation and just be right. In the end, we are here because of how these games make you feel. And that game felt electric. Okay? Was it the easiest basketball for somebody like me to watch? Not really. One thing I've thought that women's basketball is up against as a television product, because as an in-arena experience, in a lot of ways, the WNBA may have the NBA flat out beat just because it feels better, right? As a basketball experience, basketball is like a lot of things. The most direct example, it would be inappropriate for me to cite. However, to watch on television, basketball has to be played at its highest levels to really be worth the time. Watching people play bad basketball on television is so boring. You could watch them play bad basketball in person, whether it be a 24-hour fitness, intramurals in college or whatever, you can do that. But on television, only great basketball is a good watch. Like, you really stop and think about it. Football, you can watch two teams in the Sun Belt play football that you don't care about. You cannot watch two teams in the Sun Belt that you don't care about play basketball. You can watch two teams in the Sun Belt that you do care about play basketball. You just can't do that, right? Basketball requires something different. And so women's basketball, for me, just from having a lifetime of watching a lot more men's basketball, it is a much different game, and it is not always the easiest watch because there can be long stretches where people can't get buckets, right? And nobody likes that when people go long time without being able to score. You don't like that unless you got the stakes right. And there felt like it was some stretches in that game where I was like, hey, I don't really think we're getting as many buckets here as I would like. But what you still got in that game, and this also because the players aren't like as big and as tall, you still got that where you could clear out and nobody be under the basket, take somebody right, shake them back left and get to the rack. Okay, that's universal. That goes wherever you are. But I hope no matter what happens with this, no matter what the growth of the game is, whatever it is, you just got to hope that the games that matter can feel like that game did. As long as the games that matter feel the way that that game did, they got this thing under control. As the quality of basketball improves as you get along the way, all right, now you're really cooking with gas. But even if this just turns into a league that people pop in on in the playoffs, that's just fine. That's what baseball is for most people. That's what the NBA is for a lot of people, right? If the playoffs keep feeling like that, then all of this will be just fine. Every single bit of it. By the way, if those of you who are fans of, I don't want to say more traditional sports, but you understand the sports that we typically talk about in vehicles like this one for the history of forever, and you haven't watched women's basketball, Sean, I believe it's Cheryl Reeve, right? Not Reeves, but Reeve. She is the coach of the Minnesota Lynx. She coached in the Olympics, right? She's the Olympic coach. She got a bunch of championships. She's big deal or whatever. And I'm going to be honest, I knew things about her. I couldn't have picked her out of a lineup. I had never heard her voice that I could recall before, like the Caitlin Clark stuff come up, but this is the first time I could remember hearing her talk about her own team. There was a contested call at the end of that game where a foul was called against Minnesota on Breanna Stewart, and it did not look like a foul to me, especially not in the league that y'all tell me is as physical as y'all tell me that this league is. Anyway, here we go. Here is what Cheryl Reeve had to say about this, and this to me is an all-timer.
I know all the headlines will be Reeve cries foul. Bring it on, right? Bring it on. Because this shit was stolen from us. Bring it on.
Oh!
Coach, when you make a comment like that, what do you say to your ladies on the team about how to process this?
Well, we talked about it, you know. We know we could have done some things, right? But you shouldn't have to overcome to that extent. This shit ain't that hard. Officiating it's not that hard. When someone is being held, be consistent. If you don't want to hold it one end, then don't call it the other. Be consistent. Every team asked for that, right? Sandy asked for that last game. So there are 3 of the games in the series, we're talking about the same damn thing, right? So I tell these guys, you know, for whatever reason it didn't work out, right? It just doesn't feel right that you lose a series with that level of discrepancy, you know? And we don't have a team that whines and complains and, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, sometimes it probably hurts us. Maybe being a little more, I don't know, something. But I mean, I just think that, you know, you have a star player like Fee, you know, I don't get it. I don't get how she can be held and go to the basket and get hit. And then a marginal, at best, sends their best player to the free throw line. That's tough. It's tough to swallow. Just like our 2016 championship. That was lost, officiating, you know, missing a shot clock violation. This sucks. This is for a championship, right? For both teams, let them decide it. What contact is legal should be the same for both teams. This isn't that hard. And so it's disappointing, you know? I mean, congratulations to the Liberty on their first championship. Been around, I don't know, how long has the league been around? 28 years? It took them 28 years. Congrats to them, you know? We were that close to our 5th.
Yo! First of all, lot of blame gaming going on here. She blame game this one championship. She went and blame game the other championship. She was this close to calling Breanna Stewart a carrot. She should have gone the whole way. Go all the way. Go all the way. You was right there. You was this close. You was this close. Oh, when it's Fee who gets fouled, it's no call. But when Breanna gets fouled, now it's a problem. You was this close. You was right there. And that shade at the end took them 28 years. Congratulations to them. We were going for our 5th. Whoa! That's why we love sports. The NFL is back in full swing, which means you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. But rather than hearing it from me, let's hear from somebody who uses Prize Picks. Sean, how the picks been coming?
You know, Bo, the picks have been picking. You can obviously hear my picks at the end of each episode, but, you know, with Prize Picks, you can also play along with celebrities like Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sean O'Malley, and you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries of some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. And look, if you'd rather just hear from the picks that I do at the end of the show, that's fine too.
There we go. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sean, although October is the season for wearing masks and costumes, some of us feel like we wear a mask at work. social settings, and even around our family. Have you ever felt like you couldn't be your full self, like you were hiding behind a mask?
For me, Bo, I try to be myself in all settings and with everyone I encounter. But look, I know it's certainly easy to get caught up in portraying yourself in a specific way or putting on a mask, whether it's to impress someone at work or make a good first impression. But I feel like it's always best to show the real you.
That's right. And therapy can help you to accept all parts of yourself so that you can take off the mask. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/Bomani today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Bomani. Peloton is more challenging than people think. If you've been watching the show, I put on some muscle, and it's literally all thanks to Peloton. Peloton got your boy in the gym, and it's been one of the best things I've added to my weekly schedule. There's so many challenging programs to choose from, and Peloton even helps the top athletes get ready. Their custom strength workouts for the gym keep you on track to push your limits every time. Peloton is also a place to keep the spirit of competition alive. You can track the leaderboards to see who can get the largest output. Peloton classes and instructors like Alex Toussaint are designed to help focus on your needs and goals. Whether you prefer to run outdoors, row, or ride at home, or strength train at the gym, Peloton has something for you. I genuinely use Peloton, and I'm actually getting the results I want thanks to their great programs. So if you want to join Peloton, head over to onepeloton.com and get started on your fitness journey. Find your push, find your power with Peloton at onepeloton.com.
We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. No need for the social media feeds. We got you. Now, if you haven't heard.
All right, Bo, here's our first one of the day.
My name is Jamie Thompson, and I'm a contributing writer for The Atlantic. I live outside of Washington, D.C., and if you live in this area, you've seen in the past few years a major spike in violent crime. It traces back to 2020 when, as we all know, two things were happening: a global pandemic and outrage after the death of George Floyd. There's still a lot of uncertainty as to what exactly led to and drove the spike in crime. But increasingly, during the last year or two, even progressive political leaders who pushed reforms in the wake of Floyd's death have begun to backtrack. One of the crimes that's gotten a lot of attention in D.C. is carjacking. All kinds of stories appeared about it in the news. There was a mom who got carjacked when she was picking up her kid from school, a U.S. congressman, an armed Secret Service agent. It really created a lot of fear for people living in the D.C. area. When violent crime spiked, people started to rethink their anti-police, reform-minded attitudes. Now they were turning again to police and prosecutors to solve their problem. If you talk to police officers these days, they find the about face pretty ironic. A few years ago, everybody was talking about defunding them, and now people were asking them what they were going to do about the crime problem. I talked to one police supervisor who'd been assigned to head up an anti-carjacking unit in Prince George's County, which is a suburb of D.C. And he told me how frustrating it was to see kids they arrested for carjacking get let go almost immediately. To him, the reason for the crime spike seemed obvious. If you don't hold people accountable for crime, you get more of it. I talked to D.C.'s Attorney General, and he told me he was shocked at how fast the pendulum swung back toward a lock-'em-up attitude. Not incidentally, this kind of dizzying shift in public opinion helps account for why Kamala Harris now embraces her former role as a prosecutor, when just a few years ago she felt like she had to run from it. So my story is about this pendulum swing and the complications of trying to get our criminal justice system just right. Because the same officers who told me how dark and violent and traumatic a carjacking can be for its victims also told me about the depressing and squalid conditions that some of these kids who were committing carjackings were living in, and how many of them had been victims of neglect and abuse before they became offenders. I didn't come up with any easy answers for all of this. I talked to one researcher who put it this way, that you have to hold two ideas in your mind at the same time: that this is a horrible violent crime and offenders need to be held accountable for it, and also that many of these offenders are young people who have already been failed by the system in so many ways. My takeaway was this: we need good, fair policing that gets violent criminals off the streets. We also need to make sure we're holding police officers accountable. And we need investment in communities to address root causes of crime, a lack of good schools, housing, jobs, and healthcare. What we don't need are wild pendulum swings.
Yeah, so I found this to be interesting because I did not know that carjacking was back hot in these streets, because I remember when they passed that anti-carjacking statute. I know somebody who got 10 years off of that one. Like, the idea that cats is out here carjacking and getting turned away is wild talk to me. Wild talk, I tell you. I also think that people get kind of dramatic in the language that they use when they talk about carjacking. Like, in there talking about how dramatic it is and all of these things. Like, I've been robbed before. Trust me. It's not fun, right? Looking at seeing somebody's gun in your face is not the heat. I did not think, I mean, they didn't take the car, but I did not think it was the worst thing in the world. And I'm here to tell you, the difference between getting robbed and getting carjacked for me wouldn't have been that much different. It was the whole gun to my head part. That was really the issue. But see, here's the thing about carjacking. Carjacking is a crime that feels like it can happen to anybody. And that's why that's the one that people tend to get very, very particular about. Because what they're looking for is a car to take by and large and get stripped down. Sometimes for a little joyride or whatever. But nobody's really stealing your car to keep your car. You're going to get caught. That's what it, you're not going to ride around with a car in the 21st century and it'd be a long time before somebody gets to you. That's also another reason I'm surprised that carjacking is surged in the way they've described. But it is a crime that make people feel like it can happen to you. And once you have a crime that regular people, quote unquote, I'm saying quote unquote about regular people, really talking about a certain level of affluent white person feels like it happened to them, don't you worry. They about to shut that thing down. So if your plan is to go carjack somebody, I'm going to tell you right now, cut it out.
All right, Bo, here's our next one.
I'm Marina Balatnikova, Deputy Editor for Vox's Future Perfect section, and I just wrote an election story that mercifully has nothing to do with the presidential race, but it does have potentially enormous ramifications for our food system, and it's been fueling a kind of culture war over how we raise animals for food in the U.S. In a few weeks, residents of Sonoma County, California, will vote on whether to ban large factory farms in the county, and voters in Denver, Colorado will decide whether to ban slaughterhouses from their city. If you've ever been to Sonoma County, you probably know it as California's wine country. It's a region known for its idyllic vineyards, and it's sometimes called America's Provence or America's Tuscany. But it's also a place where, like virtually everywhere else across the U.S., agriculture has become increasingly consolidated and industrialized, and large animal farms, particularly the county's chicken and egg farms, can confine hundreds of thousands of animals in one place. The Sonoma ballot initiative would put a cap on the size of these facilities and force the biggest ones to either downsize or close down within 3 years. The measure is somewhat similar to a federal bill that's been proposed by Senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker, that would phase out the biggest animal farms, sometimes known as factory farms, by 2040, except this local measure would, of course, take effect much sooner. Denver, meanwhile, is probably not a place that you associate with slaughterhouses, but it is a historic hub of the livestock trade in the Wild West, and because of that legacy, Denver is actually home to probably the most important lamb slaughterhouse in the country. It butchers up to 500,000 lambs per year, or about 15 to 20% of U.S. lamb meat. An undercover investigation at the slaughterhouse released by activists last week found pretty gruesome conditions, including lambs being hit, thrown, pushed, and at least one partially eviscerated lamb on the slaughter line appearing to lift her head and open her mouth. The footage is available for anyone to watch, but it is, be warned, not for the faint of heart. If Denver's slaughterhouse ban passes, it could be a nail in the coffin for the entire U.S. lamb industry, which has already been in precipitous decline for decades. Both of these ballot measures have been hugely controversial and have attracted millions of dollars in campaign spending, which is quite a lot for local elections. And the vast majority of that money has been spent by the meat industry to oppose the measures. Both of them really face long odds, and we will see what happens next month, but advocates for these measures see them as just the beginning of their fight to stop industrial animal agriculture.
Yeah, I found this to be really interesting because I think I hear the case of the activists and I agree with them on principle. And it's somewhat easy for me to say because I will be able to afford the consequences of what they want. And one of the consequences is the stuff's going to cost more money. Now, I'm not saying this to scare anybody off or say that that should affect the way that they view this. I am saying that is the lens through which a lot of people are going to view this. And if they can convince people that what's going to happen is it's going to cost too much money to get meat, which is kind of essential to a lot of people, and they're going to go against it, right? And so there's another example how the core American value is, in fact, capitalism. And that's how we end up where we are in so many ways and places.
All right, Bo, here's our last one.
I'm Katie Natopoulos, a senior correspondent with Business Insider. Just this week, Pew released a report showing that 68% of adults are in favor of banning phones from high schools. Now, that's only during class time. Only 34% of people think that phones should be completely banned from schools. Most people think it's okay to use them at lunchtime or in the hallway between classes. This all feels pretty common sense. We know that teachers have overwhelmingly said that phones are a distraction for kids, and they support banning phones in schools. The kids themselves, slightly less so. And parents who were initially the big resistance to these phone bans because they want to be able to get in touch with their kids if there's an emergency. They're even starting to warm up to the idea. And the majority of parents with kids in K through 12 schools right now do support banning during class time. So there's a debate about phones in schools, and it often gets tied in with the bigger topic of if social media and phones are harmful for teenagers' mental health. But really, these are very separate issues for a few reasons. So the classroom thing is really easy for an adult to understand. I know if I had a phone back when I was in high school, I would absolutely be distracted. And the solution is also really simple. A lot of schools have already started implementing these full or partial bans, and they seem to work. The social media effect on teens, that's a lot more complicated. There's research that shows both sides. Sometimes research will show it's actually really beneficial for certain kids as opposed to really harmful. And there's also ongoing debate about how to even interpret certain research and academic studies on the topic. Plus, the solution isn't easy and straightforward. You don't just ban phones for all kids forever. There's lawsuits right now from states against Meta and TikTok about this issue, but it's not really clear how long or what it would take to fix these bigger societal issues. So I would expect over this next school year to start seeing a lot more of these phone bans in schools.
All I'm saying is I don't think you can make an argument to me for why a teenager or younger needs a phone in school. Needs, right? You as parent can try to make the argument of what you would like, but what we get to is need. There are phones other places. I promise you, there's still one at the desk. I guess, Sean, they've probably taken the pay phone out, unfortunately.
Yep.
That's it. Bring it back. Bring it back. Send your kid to school with a pocket full of quarters. But the kid, you're just not going to tell me that anybody needs it in that time, right? And I'd be curious to know in a lot of ways how many kids really don't even want to have it, but they little clingy-ass parents just insist.
All right, it was a great prompt for this week. People you don't want to fight. Got a lot of great submissions. Here's our first one.
Hey, Bo, this is Big Mike from Phoenix. Now, I'm a huge MMA fan. MMA is my favorite sport. And what I've realized is that you want zero problems with the Caucasians. Now, I don't mean white people from America. I mean people from the Caucasus region of Western Europe and Asia. I'm talking about the Dagestanis, the Georgians, the Chechens, the Kazakhs, the Uzbeks. If you see a guy between the heights of 5'5" and 5'11", and you can't tell if he's white, Asian, or Middle Eastern, he has no mustache, he has a beard, and cauliflower ear, you want no problems. They make up about 0.005% of the world's population and 50% of the UFC roster.
When he said Caucasian, I was like, okay, so now I'm guessing Big Mike is Mexican. All right. And I'm like, okay, so where is this going to go? And he was like, no, I mean from the Caucasus, from the river, bathed in the river, from the mountains.
Really prudent advice. Really prudent advice.
And I have to say, his research, I understand.
Totally. Here's our next one.
You don't want to fight the gay dude at your high school. I remember growing up, there was this dude named Paul. I met Paul in elementary school, and I remember I always heard he was fighting. Got expelled from the elementary school we went to. Didn't see that man again until, I think, my freshman year of high school. And Paul, at this time, was gay. Probably always was gay. And some dude was talking smack to him, joking around with him. Paul said, leave me alone. And he said, what you gonna do? Paul beat that man silly. By the way, I forgot to say, Paul was only 5'6", and the dude who was teasing him was 6'2". Paul beat the brakes off that dude, and it's back in the 2000s when we was wearing white tees. So you saw all the blood from Paul beating him up on his white tee. So, yeah. You don't want to get into a fight with the gay dude who's been teased all his life. Because they assume they can't fight. Nope. They've been fighting their whole life. And they ain't going to settle for it today. This is Corday from the Bay. Thanks, Bomani.
Hey, bro, by the end, Corday got to all the game that I was going to try to give on that. The only thing I can add to it is that man ain't just fighting against you. A lot more going on. That leads me to think, and I do think that the gay dude fighting that he is describing could quickly turn into another dude that I think you don't want to fight, but I won't say who it is because it may be the person in the third voicemail.
Not in the third one, but I'll play the third one. We can go back to this.
Well, no, if it's not there, that's cool. That's cool. I just tell you, you don't want to fight the dude that cry when he fight. It's not about you.
Yes, someone did submit that, and I was like, I know this is a point that Bo has made in the past.
Yes, not about you.
You don't want to fight the OGs. And it can be two Americas, OGs in the original sense and OG as an older gentleman. And I'll set this at like 50, 55 plus. I've seen a lot of kids, this generation coming up, trying to go viral, got these pranks, and you messing with some OGs. Whether it's like the bus driver, the custodian, whoever, even people in the gym talking crazy to the OGs, leave them alone. You don't want them problems. You don't want them to lay hands on you. They know some stuff. Don't find out. Leave them OGs alone. They're just trying to do their thing, get home. This could be an extension of that time you tried to fight your pops. It might look one way, but it might end up another way. Tread carefully. And this is for our younger folks coming up. Leave that old man alone. That older gentleman or that OG. You don't want to fight them. This is Surtois in the 336. First time, long time. Appreciate it, Bo. Do your thing.
Appreciate it. What did he call himself? Surtois?
Think so. I don't know if it was like Sir Space Toi or just name is just Surtois.
Perhaps an apostrophe.
Could be. Fascinating.
Could be. Huh. He is correct. And the big thing that the youngsters need to understand about that circumstance, that old man ain't going to lose. Like, he's not going to lose. Why? Because he's not going to lose. He'll keep calling a foul just to get the ball back. He's not going to lose. You need to understand that. But, ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this here 3 times a week, but before we do that, Sean, you got prospects for the people?
I sure do, Bo. Monday Night Football, Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry, 0.5 rush reception touchdowns. I'll take more there because he's been on quite a tear and he's almost guaranteed a rushing touchdown. And I say that now, it probably might not happen. But staying optimistic, Baker Mayfield, 1.5 pass touchdowns. We'll take more there. And Chris Godwin, who's been electric for the Buccaneers, 76.5 receiving yards. Let's go more there in a game that I think will be a shootout.
All right. And that's Sean Yu. He handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Also, thank you to our If You Haven't Heard contributors. Thank you to Marina Bolanikova. My bad, Marina. Check out her story on the California and Colorado ballot measures on the meat industry at Vox.com. Thanks to Jamie Thompson of The Atlantic. Check out her story on the carjacking crisis at TheAtlantic.com. And thanks to Kate Natopoulos of Insider. Check out her story on banning cell phones in schools at BusinessInsider.com. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.